Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be speaking to you today. My name is Patrick Conlon. I'll apologize that we're doing this remote. I'm the head of data and insights at CarTrawler, and I've promised to chat about how to use data to sell more online. My background kind of hopefully qualifies me for that. I've a long career in marketing science, as it's called. So I'll be talking a lot about purchase funnels and purchase analytics and so on. I guess I'd like to start by saying I'm really impressed that Enterprise Ireland are doing a lot of work at the moment, and I have their website up on screen here. So the online retail scheme looks to me to be a great idea. I'm sure all of you have looked at it. I wanted to make a couple of points on it. Probably the first one is, if at all possible, try to join it, because it seems like it's a really good idea and it will help you get more done online. Second point is, a lot of the work up front on the strategy is stuff that you can hopefully do yourself. So to the extent that you can actually conserve your capital and use it on the implementation, that would be very beneficial to you. So let's start by talking about the broader sense of data. Before we get into the, how do you do stuff, we kind of need to understand the market that we're actually operating in. And I think the first place that I would start is consumer confidence. So if we take a look at KBC have kindly sponsored the SRI's Customer Sentiment Index. If you take a look at the bottom of that page, there's a kind of worrying prediction in there. Generally speaking, if we see customer confidence going down or consumer confidence going down, then that's a leading indicator for our sales going down. So I think there's a fair chance that we have a tougher environment ahead of us over the next 6, maybe even 9 months. That makes it all the more important for us to have some way of maximizing the opportunities that are put in front of us. So that's kind of point number one. I think the second point is, I'm popping up something from my former employer here. So I used to work for McKinsey. They have a customer sentiment survey, which they've put out there. It's very easy to find. You just search for McKinsey and customer sentiment. And they've done a lot of work and they put it out online for free. So this one's worth reading because it'll give you a sense of how the various sectors are going to be impacted. They obviously have it for various markets as well. So depending on what sector you're working in, you probably knew it already, but it's helpful to have this data point. You can see whether people are pulling back on that spending or whether it continues to flourish. Quite a lot of red on these charts. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is that a lot of the strategy work that you would have paid a lot of money for is available to you, pretty much for free at the moment, and free is good given the environment we're in. The other point that is probably of interest is Ireland customer sentiment. So if I pop into the next one, our friends in the ESRI have done a lot of work. Obviously, we have Brexit coming and we have COVID-19, kind of a double whammy. They've done a lot of econometric work and macroeconomic work on how that's going to work out. This one in particular is worth a read because I think it'll give you a sense of when we will get through this and what's on the other side. So yeah, we're still talking data. I'll pop us on to yet another slide, again available online. All of these are just me clicking through tabs. So there's one called the Coronavirus Government Response Tracker. So in my job right now, we're trying really hard to understand, when demand will return, because the business that we're in, it's gone very quiet. So, when is it actually going to come back? One part of it obviously will be when we have the vaccine. But actually, government responses and government constraints are equally important in understanding, demand and the suppression of demand. So what I'm pointing at here is actually something that from the University of Oxford. And essentially, what it shows you is governments around the world, how they're actually responding to the threat of coronavirus and the extent to which they are locking down or, imposing safety restraints on movement that will obviously impact the consumer buying patterns. Again, it's another one of these things that's worth keeping an eye on, because as we see these things relax, we'll see the recovery come behind it. One final macro slide, and another really nice one, this one from Google. This is their Google Mobility Report. So what these things are is it's based on cell phone activity. So it's actually very empirical, but it'll show you what's happening in a particular market, the extent to which people are working from home, the extent to which they're going out and engaging in leisure activities and shopping activities. So it's a good proxy for the extent to which an economy is locked down. The Ireland one is actually quite interesting because you've got a lot of stuff by county and by sector. So it'll be quite helpful in terms of understanding, what's going on around Ireland. And it's updated relatively often. So if you're not in the way of kind of downloading data, because I'm a data guy, we download the actual source data on this stuff, but you can actually just go read the reports and get a pretty good sense of what's going on. So kind of 3 macro sources to help you understand, where the demand is and when it's coming back. I think the next thing, and given the fact that we've got 15 minutes, I'm not going to give a full hour-long lecture. That is in my past as well, so no need to take notes. This thing is being recorded. But I think we need to talk a lot about the purchase funnel. So as you move online, this whole idea, and I've just flicked up Wikipedia, it's as good a place to learn about this stuff as any. We've got the classic purchase funnel. Now, again, all of you who've done Marketing 101 will remember this and going, hey, what are you talking about? But it's worth reminding ourselves that when we go online, the shape of this funnel is very wide at the top and very narrow at the base. So as you're converting people from, they're aware of us, to they've visited the website, to they have an opinion on us, to they've considered us, it's actually a lot more interesting to make that conversion funnel work. And it really is a game of inches in terms of like getting a 0.1% increase at the top of the funnel will greatly improve what comes down in terms of sales and repeat sales at the bottom. So just wanted to point that one out. The next chart you're going to have fun with because it's in German. And again, that's primarily because this was the best chart I could find. That was open source, so I'm allowed to use it. We'd used something similar in McKinsey when I was back there. Don't worry about the language. Essentially, the piece up here is what you need to care about. They have the idea that you start with the awareness, but you end with advocacy. I can almost say that word. This is important. Another version of this is the loyalty loop, again from my former employer, McKinsey. The idea here is that it's not enough to bring people down through the funnel. Actually, in order to be effective online, it's the repeat business that will make the money for you, not the actual conversion funnel up front. Now, people will argue, and of course it varies by sector, but to be honest, if you take a look at the expense of getting people in at the top of your consumer funnel, and then the number of them who actually buy from you, once they have bought, then if you can bring them into and basically convert them to be your customer so that you've got the loyalty, then the acquisition cost, the next cycle around will be a lot less. And the retention cost will be a lot less than trying to go out and prospect for new customers. Because like I said, these funnels are very, very wide at the top. It takes a lot of effort to fill them. And the yield at the very bottom of the funnel is not necessarily economic for you. So figuring out how to do loyalty is probably the best piece of advice I can give within the 15 minutes that we've got. I wanted to very quickly talk about the other forms of data that you should be thinking about as you do this. I've gone to the website of my old friends SAS. So they're one of the data analytics tools out there. I'm not endorsing them or anything, but they have some very nice thinking on how to do data. This chart I found interesting because it basically encapsulates all you have to do. And it'll feel a little bit overwhelming because you've got things like AI and digital analytics, which are fields within themselves, and definitely places you'll probably want to get professional help. In my job, we do all of these things. I don't personally do all of these things. There are 15 people in my team, and they're a hell of a lot smarter than me, so they do these things. And I've got colleagues in other departments who are doing other parts of this. So it's a really specialized thing. But if we bring it down to its core, essentially, we need to understand what is our demand looking like. And we've got some macro stuff we've just looked at. It's probably a good idea to go out and do a survey. So if you have a list of your customers and you have their email addresses, it's relatively cheap to survey them. And what you want to do is you want to ask basically 5 questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how much. So like all market research comes down to those 5 questions. So we've done one recently for customer sentiment among our own customers, and it's really those 5 questions. So when are you planning to buy? How many times are you planning to buy this year? What will make you more likely to buy? What will make you less likely to buy? And when exactly will you buy? Which months? Because in the business that I work in, the month is really important. We have peak periods. From those questions and a little bit of judicious work, and if you're not into surveys yourself, then phone the guys in the marketing department in any one of the universities or ITs and see if there's a student available to do stuff for you. And you'll have a very good sense of whether your customers are going to continue to consume at the same rate and when they will come back if you're experiencing somewhat of a lag at the moment. Also figuring out what will block them from doing it will help you plan ahead. So that's the survey out of the way. It's actually relatively easy to do. I think the other piece of advice that I have to do is on personalized marketing. We've tended to believe that when you go online, that you have to be a giant. And look, it does help to have scale here because these are very specialized disciplines. However, I think the great advantage that a small and medium enterprise has is there's probably a pre-existing relationship and recognition of that business by their customers. So if you can re-engage with them, then you still have the edge over a broad, pure play e-commerce business. And that the idea that we will all try to support our local businesses and our colleagues and our neighbors over the course of this crisis, I think will be a great advantage to you. So like when we talk about things like segmentation, optimization, and attribution, that's really, the science stuff. But what it comes down to is what different types of customers do I have and what kinds of needs do they have? Do I need to do a different offering or can I do a mass offering? And the personalization and recommendations part, that's huge as well, because essentially no one knows your customer better than you. So even if you get me and 15 data analytics guys in a room, you have an edge on us because you already understand why your customer was buying from you in the offline world. And it'll be a lot easier to do it online. And then I think the final part on this one, the customer decisioning. So real-time customer experience and streaming customer data. I'm just going to say one thing about this. When you move online, again, a game of inches. So your customer experience is vital. Oops. Okay, you just saw me getting called by my boss. The customer experience is vital, and the the speed at which I can actually get through your website and do the transaction is probably the main difference between winning and losing in this game. So how do you figure out how that stuff works? Well, that's my next slide. And one idea, not necessarily the only idea, is Google Analytics. I don't endorse it or any other vendor on this call, obviously, but they do have a free tier, so it's a good way to get started. Essentially, what Google Analytics allows you to do is to track the progress of your customer through your decision journey on the website and understand where it's broken. So, if you had 100 people enter the website, 50 of them make it to the product selection page, but then 20 of them make to the buy, you're falling off pretty rapidly. And if then it's of those 20, only 1% actually execute on the cart. And by the way, these numbers are not untypical. It will be, very, very small percentages make it to the buy. Then understanding where you're losing that customer along the journey is very important. And analytics tools like the Google Analytics will be very helpful to you. So, as you talk to people about consulting, I think a lot of it would be measuring the customer journey through your website. Which brings me neatly to the very first slide that I showed, Enterprise Ireland. My recommendation as a kind of a medium-sized, small-medium business, so we're kind of in this business already, would be that you, if at all possible, engage with the scheme, and if at all possible, move as much of your investment to the execution part rather than the strategy part. So strategy, pretty much you've just heard it from me. So, consider that line drawn, and try really hard to invest in the back-end systems, which are actually allowed under this grant, because that's really the long-term benefit. It's understanding how the customer is coming through and having the analytics for it, and having the back-end systems to actually process it. So that was 15 minutes, hopefully. I'll be very happy to answer questions from anybody in the future. So I think Lorraine has my email address. Pop an email to her and I'll be happy to talk to you guys. Good luck today.